Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Abandoned Brush. My name is Craig Mormon, and we are talking about all shitty things about the Shambhala Buddhist cult and getting better. Today we're talking about getting better. Um, and it's not going to be an easy one, and it's not going to be a short one. I don't think this one's going to be a short one. So I had to call in my backup here, and I've got my fake beer that I like a lot. Actually, if you told me how much I would like fake beer 2 or 3 years ago, never would have believed you. Couldn't have believed it. Anyhow, earlier this week, no, maybe last week. It was last week. Time flies. One of the people who dumbass abused got a hold of me, reached out by email, and we talked a little bit briefly, very very brief conversation. Um, and we talked about kind of her experience and what happened to her. And I had read about it, so I kind of knew the timeline, the material details of the story, and a little bit about kind of what else happened and how it might have felt. But when we talked, it was very, very different feeling. I understood in a very different way what that must have been like. Not that I can, not that I can actually understand, but I understood a hell of a lot better than I did just from reading a little bit, and made me want to remake last Saturday's video. I'm not gonna do that, but it made me want to do that because I felt like I didn't go hard enough on just how bad that sense of spiritual betrayal can be. And yeah, I'm just in shock. So thank you for sharing that with me. And if anybody's doubting, like, was it that bad? It was that bad. It is that bad. Um, Nobody should ever have to go through that. And so a lot of us went through different things, you know. Um, and this topic of trauma kind of keeps coming back, and it's going to keep coming back. And I felt like I wanted to kind of go there right away today because it feels like kind of urgent in some way. Um, it's just because I've heard a lot of your stories. I've heard a lot of your stories, and a lot of people have been affected in a lot of different ways. And there's a pretty common theme. It's not always there, but people who were looking for help found Shambhala. And if they were lucky, they just got taken advantage of and they didn't get anything valuable. And they kind of, and then that was like if you were lucky. And then, um, and if you weren't lucky, fuck. It's bad. It's really bad. Um, and, So anyway, I felt a kind of urgency to talk about working with and discovering and healing and understanding trauma. I want to go back just a little bit and remember that I do want to make it clear that Shambhala didn't traumatize everybody necessarily. Probably more people than not already had some sort of traumatic experience in their life, or several, by the time they got to Shambhala, and then Shambhala was there just fuck them over and take their money and their labor and make them worse and make them not get help that actually helps them. And in some cases, that's just pretty fucking bad, you know. It was bad for, it's all bad. It's like, it's all bad, but in some cases, it was pretty severe. Um, So I want to make that clear. There were people who were directly traumatized by Shambhala for sure. If they were raised in Shambhala, especially, I actually count Mipham on that list, dumbass. But we're gonna talk about dumbass later because he deserves his whole own, at least one video, if not a whole series, talking about his fucked up trauma. But that's a thing. Is you have a choice what you do. If you were hurt, if somebody did something to you, you have a choice of how you handle that. And unfortunately, it seems a lot of people who are traumatized do become abusers, and like real serious, ones. And, you know, to some degree, I think all of us kind of have to fight that possibility, or work with, to use a term ruined by Shambhala. I am going to talk a little bit about terms that were ruined by Shambhala in this conversation, but not right now. But you can also, try to heal and learn how to heal and grow, actually grow from that experience too. And this is an especially hard video to make because, like, I realize that I don't really know much. From hearing from all of you and reading your comments, I realize that some of you are way more expert in any of these things than I am. And so I don't want to come off like I'm trying to give instructions or something like that. But some of you may, have not yet realized that trauma is part of the problem for you. So maybe something that you hear might be valuable. So, like, this is like the disclaimer portion, is just to realize that, like, I'm not an expert. I'm just talking about my experience. If I say you need to, that's just because I'm actually just kind of like holding it a little bit at a distance. But what I'm really saying is I needed to, or I still need to. But one thing that I can say that I do think applies even for people who maybe have read every book and know every and seen every video and know every technique out there, is that I have gotten a lot better. And I've got a long ways to go, but symptoms can be reduced, and in some cases maybe close to eliminated. In other cases, you know, like, I don't want to speak to you and tell you what you can accomplish, but I would just want to give a little bit of hope, maybe, for somebody who's feeling like, like they can't do it, or like it's totally impossible. There's things that where you're gonna have to accept, that one has to accept, that I have to accept. See, I'm trying to do that. I have to accept, that won't get all the way better. And things aren't going to go the way I wanted to because of some of that stuff, but that's just the way it is. So try to focus on the places where it does, where you can improve, you know. So it doesn't matter for the story anyway what it was that got the ball rolling, for me personally, or for you. I mean, it matters to you and it matters to me, but it doesn't. I don't have to tell you about me in order for this to make sense. The details, anyway. And I have my reasons for doing that way. Sure, it can make sense to people, um, but it matters, sort of, um, how it felt, how it was experienced, and then the progression, and kind of a little bit how I did that, have done that, because it's an ongoing process. It won't end. It won't ever end. It might get a lot easier than it even is now, but it's not going to end. It doesn't end. And so anyway, I could go all the way back through Shambhala, and in some way that would make sense, but I don't want this to be a 3-hour video, 12 minutes in, and this is like the introduction to the introduction. So I gotta, be a little efficient. So I will talk about kind of the end of my career in Shambhala. Somebody mentioned that like I jumped from like year 2 to like being on the road, and like there's this 10-year gap in there, and now I'm gonna go even farther forward, um as far as my storytelling with my experience with Shambhala, and eventually maybe the whole sort of timeline will actually be kind of, but it'll be in different pieces. And bear with me as far as all of this stuff, because if we want to get to the nuance of what this Shambhala situation is, it's like it's gonna be it's gonna take a really long time, because there's just like, and hopefully over time I can paint the picture over here and over here and over here and over here until the whole canvas is filled out, and it'll maybe make some sense to somebody, maybe even me, if I'm lucky. But we'll see. So I kind of want to talk about the end time with Shambhala. What it was like for me, like for the last maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and then and the aftermath, and kind of what that was like. Because yeah, that should kind of give us enough kind of context and background to kind of understand the healing process. I mentioned in a previous video that my mother died when I was young, and that I sort of, I thought that like having to grieve her was like the cause of my depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, and all that other shit that I had. um, but I actually really dug into grieving, and kind of think did a pretty decent job of doing that, and it didn't fix me. It didn't fix those things. Um, well, that's because it's your karma from 47 lifetimes ago, and the only thing you can do is pray to the guru. Um, Fuck those guys. Anyway, um, no, it was because I had CPTSD and I didn't know that. So I just kept kind of spinning my wheels with Shambhala, and it got like worse and worse the whole time. Like it was a gradual kind of worse and worse and worse sort of thing. But my last few years, so I kind of talked about like the early days, and then we had the road, and after the tour, I kind of split from Shambhala for like 5 years. I'll talk about more about what that was like. Oh, look, he's touching his nose. It's not cocaine. That guy's not watching anymore anyway, I'm sure. But for about 5 years after the road, it's funny that I did that, because I did get hooked on cocaine right after I was on the road. I will tell that story later. But I didn't really do, for 5 or more years, I didn't really do anything with Shambhala, barely. I was connected. Like I kept like this little tiny thread, but like I didn't really do much. And then I kind of tried to force myself back into it a little bit, and I went up and joined the Kosong staff at Shambhala Mountain Center. And I think it was like a year or a year and a half that I was like the Kosong assistant, and then I took over as the Rusong. I think I did that for 2 years. Um, and that I told you a little bit about what a shit show that place was. And I could go into more detail, but this is going to get over long if I do it now. Um, but I basically was pretty burned out by the end of it. And I was in a relationship at the time, and it kind of had its ups and downs. There was a on again, off again part of it. Um, and so, of course, at the end, we figured, obviously having been completely burned out by working for Shambhala, we should go work for Shambhala some more. Um, and that was stupid. And some people will blame me for that, for me having made that decision, for not having moved to Fort Collins and gotten a regular job, which is kind of what I was thinking of doing. But anybody who really kind of got pulled in that way, in that sort of trauma kind of way, like understands why. Like you think, oh yeah, more of this poison is what I need. Like that's just where you can be when you're feeling that way, and also when you think the poison is going to save you, so you just keep drinking more and more of it. Um, Anyhow, so I moved to Mexico to Casa Huerma, where the Huerma Sadhana was written. We moved there, and we became the directors of Casa Huerma, and I wound up being there for about 2.5 years or something. Oh shit! That just made me remember something. I'll mention it in a minute. Um, oh my god, it's so fucked up. These people are so fucked up. Um, it's just extraordinary. So what happened at Casa Huerma was we got there and we were working our asses off, and it was like kind of like it was a job that was really too big for two people, but it was like, it was somewhat manageable. But it was basically just sort of like, here's the keys, like, here's some files, here's the keys, here's some other crap, go. Um, and we kind of knew what we were doing reasonably well between us. So like the first year was hard, but like we got it done. But our relationship fell apart for again, because we probably were holding on when we never should have done it. Again, whatever. That's life. So then she got really sick, and she abruptly moved back to the United States, and wasn't and the way we had split the responsibilities was pretty like your job, my job, like half and half, right down the middle, that made sense for our strong suits. So like she was doing the stuff I wasn't good at, and I was doing the stuff, well, she'd probably be fine with my stuff, but she was doing stuff I wasn't good at. No, I don't know, whatever. So I wound up having to run the place by myself with like no, like having to just figure it all out for a year and a half. It wound up being a year and a half. I think it was a year and a half. It was something like that. It was more than a year. It was more than a year for sure. Um, and I did it. Like I kept the place running. I kept the place open. Everybody got paid except for me a couple times, because we were so low on funds at times that I couldn't get paid, and I never did get paid for those months. Because that was sort of the arrangement. It's like, oh, you agreed to it. It's basically like bring in revenue and then pay yourself whatever's left over. It's basically like, and then and yeah, that was the arrangement. Another Another great Shambhala arrangement. So yeah, I think for like 3 or 4 months I didn't get paid. So I wound up leaving there with less money, significantly less money than I showed up with. Um, and the thing that struck me, there's two things that struck me. One is the one that I had planned on saying, and the one is the one I just thought of. I hadn't remembered until just now. Is the whole time, like, nobody, there was one person, one of the women who was in the Mexican sangha, actually, and she also had a connection to like the Casawerma board, but like she was the only one that like actually offered to help. And like I didn't know what help. It was like one of those things. I was so overwhelmed that I didn't know what help to ask for. I was just like, and so like, but I remember she did ask me if I needed some help, and that was the only person the entire time anywhere in the entire leadership who did that at all. They were just like, yeah, well, it's a place is still open. I guess that's good enough. And it's like I remember when I found that out. Like, I think that was actually when I realized or I didn't realize it because it was like it was a process. But when there was some point when I realized that was like, that was kind of, I was already starting to end for me at that point, you know, and and so at some point I told somebody, and I told the story kind of like this, and the whole thing, and the first thing that this person said was, "Did you stay for your commitment?" Like, for real, first thing, not like, "How's your health?" but like, did you stay for your commitment? Because even though you were doing a job that no one person should ever have to do, and you're completely abandoned by everyone, you have to commit, you have to complete your commitment. So it's this one way thing, right? Like, it doesn't matter if the leadership or the teacher or anyone, doesn't keep up their end of the bargain. You must keep up your end of the bargain. And that's kind of, it goes back to the last video with the people like calling me out for breaking vows. It's like, fuck you. The vows were already broken. They were already broken. It's just astonishing. I just remember that was, I don't remember who it was, but I remember getting that question and just being like, you got to be kidding me. So anyway, then I moved to Boulder and I kept trying to teach for a while. And I did teach a little bit. I did a couple of contentment in everyday lives. I think I taught a level 2. Um, and I was still just hanging on to it again. Like, give me more of the poison, give me more of the poison. Um, and at that point, I had developed these really bad tension headaches that I didn't know I was having because I was drinking so much. And I actually like quit drinking for like 2 weeks just because I couldn't figure out why I was so damn unhealthy. It's like, well, maybe because you are drinking half a bottle a day and, smoking like, God, I don't know how much I smoked at that point. I used to smoke. Anybody who knows me knows how much I used to smoke. It took me 6 years to quit smoking. And that's part of the recovery story. So anyway, there was yeah, so at one point I went and I was supposed to teach a contentment in everyday life, and I was like so fed up with Shambhala. The way that those worked, those stupid classes is the first night was free and there was no registration. So it's just like an open public talk, and then it's like, if you want to come back, then you register and pay. Or beg, but so I was so depleted and I was so sick of it, and like I was so over it in some ways that I gave this talk and I was like, I couldn't do, all that Shambhala bullshit. I couldn't do it like the haughty fucking that thing, and the ape position and fucking all that stupid shit. Like, I just couldn't bullshit myself into it anymore. So I got up there and I said, like, I can try and guide you along some meditation. And it was just like my heart wasn't in it. And then the next week, like, nobody came back, and I was relieved, and I just stopped going. Like Office Space. I just stopped going. And I didn't go back for a long, long time. Ever. Actually, ever. I've never been back to a Shambhala Center. Not a long, long time. Never. I've never been in it. I haven't been in the Shambhala Center since. Um, and I might, who knows? I might show up at the stupa or something wearing a ninja outfit. You never know. But I haven't. I haven't been. And so by then I was pretty fucked up. I started dating somebody else. There was a pretty big decent gap between the relationship at Casa Huerma and the one in Mexico City, but um yeah, I haven't given the timeline perfectly, but like I had been dating somebody in Mexico City. Um and I was teaching English and I was getting sick like all the time, like all the time. And I was just so depleted. It was terrible. Like my mind was shot, my body was shot. I had just been 5.5 years of working for Shambhala, or something like that, maybe close to 6, and I was just completely depleted. And then I started to say, okay, I got to get better. Right, I got to get better. And I started smoking weed. Like that was, and it helped actually. It helped a fair bit, and because I was so anxious and so fucking like such a mess that like it kind of drove my anxiety down a little bit. And now that's not necessarily the best approach to healing trauma, but like one thing when it comes to trauma and that sort of shit, there is like a whatever gets you through the night kind of thing, if that's where you're at. And so, if when people judge people who drink or who have addictions, and that kind of shit, it's just a bad move, because there's like, if you're in that stage, whatever gets you through the night might be the only way to go. And that's a terrible thing to have to say, but it's true. And fuck those guys. Like, I'm not thinking about what they did to me. I'm thinking about, because all they, like, fuck it. I probably deserved it, but like, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But like, what they did to other people really just, when I had this conversation, I wanted revenge. Like, when I wanted revenge. Not for me. I mean, I wish I could express it in a way that you would understand. But anyhow, um, so yeah, I was all fucked up. And that relationship eventually came to an end. In large part because I couldn't get my shit together. Like, I could not work long enough to like make enough money because I had to take days off to just lay in bed. If you read the letter that I wrote on my birthday, like, that was not so long after all the Kusum letter and everything else came out. But so I struggled along, and we struggled along, and she had her own demons, and we tried to be good to each other, but I started to realize, and then I had that moment that I don't remember, in one of the videos I talked about when I Googled how to stop clenching your jaw, because I had tried to, like, I'd been doing some yoga and it was helping me be less tense. And then I discovered CPTSD and went down that rabbit hole pretty hard. Because I was like, I saw this one video where that somebody was describing the experience, and I was like, that's me. Um, But the tension thing is actually really interesting because while I was in Shambhala, like, you just sit with it, right? And then um, I've clenched my jaw and kind of done like this kind of thing for so long that my spine is actually like a little bit buckled and twisted, and I've had to do a lot of relaxation kind of body, whatever stuff and like some days it's pretty straight now. Like, and some days it feels like I'm wearing a collar around my neck, like even now. And I've come such a long way. I've come such a long freaking way, and that's just what it's like. And Shambhala didn't cause that, but they did make it worse. And they did, the worst thing that they did as far as that's concerned is um, they told me they had the solution, and the solution was total bullshit. And there were other ways that I could actually healed, you know. Um, and for 20 years, they, kept me on the fucking hamster wheel. It's funny, because they talk about the circle of samsara that you're going in, and it's like, dude, it's a fucking hamster wheel of Shambhala bullshit. Anyway, so yeah, I was all fucked up. Started to do the yoga, the jaw thing. Oh, this is important. Like, this is. We're getting pretty raw here, folks. We're getting pretty naked. I hope this all records. I gotta make sure. Check. Okay, good. All right, I'm probably just gonna leave that in because if it happens again, I don't have to worry about it. Because I'm so bad at editing. It took me like so long to edit that last video, and all I did was chop the ends off and take a little piece out of the middle when my microphone did the same thing. What was I saying? Other than fuck those guys. Oh yeah. Shit. So, yeah, I know why. Today is not the day that I'm going to start using euphemisms, by the way, you may have noticed. So I was pretty fucking suicidal after Casawerma. And I had those thoughts a lot. And it was weird because it was after I quit Shambhala, and I think it was after you did what you did. And the Kusung letter happened. And it was around the time we were writing the Kusung letter, because there was this brief period of time when the Kusung letter was written when I lived in this one apartment. And I remember saying to my girlfriend, like, I've thought so much, that I want to die. And then I just realized I want to live. I don't know exactly what caused that or how it happened, but there was this somewhere down there in the depths of all that fucking shit. Like, I was kind of still clawing my way out of it. Um, and and then we wrote the Kusung letter, and I was all like, I was like taking Klonopin drops like every fucking day during that period of time. Um, and I was just like white knuckling it through that whole period of time. And I will do a whole separate discussion of that because that's not what our main focus is now. And somewhere around there, I kind of started my kind of healing process. And so any of you who watch the old videos and are looking at me now, you can kind of see, right? You can kind of see a little bit of the difference, I hope. But the way that I feel is just so different from what it was back then. Back then, I was like, my nerves were shot. I was like, I would, I mean, maybe you don't know. If you don't know, like, I don't want to like embody it right now because I'll start to feel it. it's the sensitive ones who get the most fucked up. You may have noticed, like the sensitive ones are the ones who get the most traumatized. And we need sensitive people. Like, we don't all need to be sensitive people, but the world needs highly sensitive people. We need all different kinds. Um, that's what I think, anyway. I don't know what you think. Let me know in the comments if you think that's bullshit. Um, Let me know in the comments what other Shambhala words were ruined for you too. We'll just regular words like profound and projection. I had to say that one. You know why. Some of you do. One of you does. I don't know about the rest of you. But anyway. So I wanted to talk. So that was the introduction. Oh boy. So that was the introduction. And then, like, the healing process for me required a few things. And requires, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not done. And some of it's kind of like steps, but like sometimes they happen simultaneously or bounce back and forth or leapfrog or whatever, But like, I think there's kind of a first step, which is really hard. It's really, really hard to just admit to yourself, that you've been hurt and that you've been affected that way. And that it may have put some limitations on you that you wish you didn't have. It might require certain things of you that other people just don't have to deal with. And I think that, like, having a difficult time admitting that is sort of, something that really does kind of slow some people down. And makes it hard for them to kind of enter into the healing process. It certainly did for me. See how I'm talking about them, but really I'm talking about me. Bear with me here. This is not easy. So first you have to admit that you're hurt. I had to admit that I had been hurt. And from there, I had to sort of recognize the patterns a little bit. And I mentioned Pete Walker's book. I'm not going to go run over and pick it up again. That was, for me, central to my personal healing process. And there are other ways to do it. I think it's a good one for everybody, but like, not everything's going to work for everybody. Everybody's got a different style. If you're in one place, something might work, but like a year earlier, it was no good for you. Like, it's just, so you kind of have to become an expert in yourself. And so I did my best to do that, but I got lucky in a lot of ways because I found things that helped me relatively quickly. And if you need this stuff, you could get lucky too, and you might not. And if you don't, like, please don't give up. Like, please don't give up. Because I believe in you. I think you might be able to get better, Anyway, but please don't give up. Fucking. So yeah, realizing you're hurt, becoming an expert about what you need. Those things are important. In Pete Walker's book, I'm not going to go over the whole damn book, but he emphasizes two things. And CPTSD has a lot to do with childhood stress and trauma. There are other forms of PTSD. There are other ways that things can manifest. So again, like, not everything will work for everybody. But his emphasis is on really two main things. But there's a lot more. There's a thick book to describe these two main things, which are grieving the loss of your childhood and the loss in your childhood and your childhood generally. And then quelling the voice of the inner critic. And those are kind of the two primary things. There's a lot elaborated there. But for me, so the next step from sort of realizing that I'd been hurt was to, cut out the relationships that were perpetuating that, which in my case turned out to be almost all of them. Now, some of you were my friends back then, and some of you have come out of the woodwork, and this channel has actually gotten me in touch with some old dear friends who have also walked away, or who were only kind of touched Shambhala a little bit. And so by having this channel, I've actually expanded my relationship group quite considerably. But some of the people you were friends with in Shambhala might still be able to be your friends or whatever, but at the time, I didn't know who they were, right? None of us knew. When you're like, fuck it, I'm out. Especially if it was all right at the 2018, 2019 kind of moment, you don't know who's out and who's not. So and for me, I was in Mexico, I wasn't in contact, so I literally cut out almost every relationship in my life. And once my girlfriend kicked me out, and I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. I wouldn't have dated me in that state, because what did I have to offer other than oh, I'm very loving and I'm just a mess. It's not very manly. Anyhow, so my only friends were my Mexican friends, and not my girlfriend had been Mexican too, but she wasn't a toxic relationship, but she was gone. But they were all Mexicans that I met who had nothing to do with Shambhala. Those were my only friends for the next few years, and there weren't very many of them, and I was very, very isolated. And then COVID happened, during COVID, I didn't touch another human being for a little over a year. Remember how fucked up that was, everybody? Aren't you glad that shit's over? So anyway, yeah, cutting out toxic people for me meant cutting out everybody, and I think that that's not that uncommon of an experience. So the loneliness can be just kind of tremendous. Anyway, so yeah, what we do so far? We did realizing you've been hurt, breaking the patterns, cutting out toxic people, and then I had to learn how to value myself and how to take care of myself. And so I actually spent, fuck it, I'm going to say all of this. There was a period of I don't know how long, several months or a year, that I would literally talk to myself like I was talking to a child. And all that stuff. Hey, booty. All that stuff that I used to make fun of, that's really cool to make fun of in Shambhala, using aspirations and affirmation, not aspiration, affirmations. They're into aspirations, right? And then you burn them with the whatever in front of the stupa. Fuck those guys. It's sad for me to see the names of people that I really love pop up in official communications from time to time. It just makes me sad. But anyway, the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, so I used to talk to myself like I was talking to a little child, and say really basic stuff, you're not stupid, you're, shit like that. And I just did it over and over and over again, and it hurt so much, and I cried so much. And it went on, and I did that for so long, and I would, work with that voice that tells you that you can't do it, that you're not good enough, and all that shit. And I would just there were times when I was pretty violent with it, fuck you, get out of my fucking head, and that kind of thing. I was not labeling it thinking at all. I was labeling it, fuck you, let's go, motherfucker. Don't treat him that way. And it's like the child me was like on the outside, and it's like, you don't treat him that way. And I'd actually say things like, you don't have to do it anymore. You know, you don't have to do it anymore. Because that's the thing, right? With trauma, like your fucking survival mechanism gets kicked into high gear, and then my survival mechanism was kicked into high gear and just kind of, always going. So I developed things. I'm gonna keep saying I, god damn it, like hypervigilance and that kind of constant tension. And it's like, so I would literally like, talk talk to talk to myself and be like, the war's over. Like, little boy, you don't have to do this anymore. Because I'm here now, and I'm big, and I'm grown, and now I know how to protect you. Holy fuck. And and it worked. I mean, it's not over, but it worked. It helped. It helps a lot. And I started to develop self-respect that I pretended to have while I was in Shambhala. And I gradually started to learn how to take care of myself. Like, we would say that all the time, right? And then people used to say to me all the time, to be fair, like, but this is the point, right? Is like, because you could look at this and be like, oh, see, your problems were yours all along. They had nothing to do with Shambhala. But it's like, Shambhala preys on those people, gets them to come back over and over and over again, and gets them to blame themselves. And so you spend fucking 5, 10, 20, 30 years blaming yourself for something that's completely out of your control. And they'll fucking use their fucking voodoo bullshit to be like, oh yeah, well that's because you're karma. And we're just going right to the source, which is like, pray to the guru so that you can buy him cosmetics. Dumbass is not helping anybody. And if dumbass is like this magician that you all think he is, then like, why does he have the exact same fucking pattern? Like, why? Can you traumatize a guru and then he like magically uses his magic trauma to enlighten everybody? Or maybe it's all just kind of a bunch of bullshit. Maybe. Do you think? Could it be? Could it be? I'll let you decide. Then they tell you to sit with it, right? And then they tell you that you can't see the situation as pure because you're fucked up. But then when I broke away from all of that and I actually started to treat myself with some kind of respect, I started to get better. And I didn't want to die anymore, and I wanted to live. And I was sort of stuck with this loneliness and this feeling of loss, having lost my sense of purpose, having lost my sense of stability, and having to deal with the very real feeling of, oh fuck, I don't know. I'm dealing with limited information and I don't have all the answers. I used to have all the answers and that was awesome. Not so much really, because like, it's better. It's better to be to admit that you don't know and be a little bit closer to reality than to just be bullshitting yourself and holding on. I have sympathy for those people who continue to hold on, but it makes me angry that they perpetuate this stuff. So anyway, we've gotten mostly through it, but there's more. There's more. And I think this is actually a really important part because there was a stage where I had realized that I'd been hurt and I was aware of toxic people in my life, and um, I was going to make damn sure that I wasn't going to be treated that way. And I developed like a crazy hair trigger for anything that just anytime anybody tried to shut me down or like anything that I perceived as like even beginning to be abusive, I was just like, bam! And that was okay for a while. But that was a stage. That was like recreating some sense of boundary, that I could have like a little bit of control over. But it wasn't sustainable to like start yelling at somebody, in a bar. I still drank at that point. Uh, don't you fucking talk to me like that. You can't, it's hard to live that way. And you're keyed up. You don't want to be keyed up like that. I don't want to be keyed up like that. Um, and then the hard part happened. And it's still happening, but like they're all hard parts. But this one is, I think, this is a stumbling block, I think, for a lot of people because I think that even a lot of people who like claim to be trauma aware or like, they want to be sympathetic to people who are traumatized and give space to that. I think a lot of them take advantage of people too. And what I mean is like, I think that you can kind of use your imagination, but I think there are a lot of interests, a lot of entities, let's say, and it's different. Could be a lot of things. A lot of people are stand to benefit if you stay in that sort of halfway aware of your trauma, but not having fully addressed it kind of state. Um, like, because I think you can be manipulated. I think it's possible to be manipulated in that kind of context. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of you traumatized people are super fucking savvy to that stuff, and I don't want to talk down to you again, like, um, but this stage was very important for me, and there's a huge spectrum of people's experiences, so just know I'm trying to be sensitive, like, I'm trying. But, anyway, the next part for me was, like, really looking at the bad habits that I have and like not just sort of claiming my victimhood and sort of creating a bubble around me and then fighting, you know. Um but looking at what I do that's that doesn't work, that maybe perpetuates my own problems, that maybe prevents me from connecting to people and having better relationships, all that kind of stuff. You can imagine, like, and if you're dealing with this kind of shit, you have your own style and version of this stuff. But like for me, one example is, I sort of started to kind of manipulate and control the situation around me when I was pretty young, and I was clever, so I could get away with a lot of shit. Um, And so I learned how to bullshit my way through things without like ever doing anything that was like really, really hard. I mean, there are exceptions. Like, when I was playing, highly competitive soccer, I worked my ass off for that. So like, but like mentally, I like I could trick people. I could get around shit, you know. Um, like I was one of I was the kid who didn't want to show his work with math because I wouldn't necessarily actually do it. I would just kind of come up with the answer. So shortcuts, like all the fucking shortcuts you can imagine. And at a certain point, like I had to get a job, right? Like I'd been teaching English, not making enough money. I moved back here. I had to get a job, and like all of a sudden, you know, the job, by the way, I'm in software quality assurance, which is like not as sort of crazy difficult as being a developer, but has its own sort of qualities. And there's a lot of, you got to learn a lot of stuff to do that. Um, And man, it was hard. Like, and I had to look at like, oh, yeah, I've been bullshitting my way and coasting through shit. And that's been part of my sort of trickery that I developed to cope. Um, and if I got to do hard things, you know. So that stage has been really challenging for me. And I think I actually, that's part of the reason why I was willing to start this channel now is that like, um, I figured out that I actually, yeah, I still can do hard things. I can still learn something, I can do hard things, but like I had to kind of retrain myself and like, develop discipline and not get distracted and sort of learn how to work an 8-hour day, at a computer and not just like fight it, because I'd always figure out a way to get out of shit like that. It's weird because I could sit in that goddamn costume chair like this for like forever. Um, but like, and like, I've done so much goddamn meditation, but like, you know, it took me so much work to teach myself how to do my job. Um, so that stage, I think, is an often missed one that is really really important, and I think you have to be a little farther along to engage that. But I think it's really really important for developing a rich and decent and fulfilling life. And I haven't fixed everything at all, um, but I'm doing so much better than I was just a couple years ago. And I hope some of this can help you guys. There's some things that a little those are like the stages, and then there's a couple of little detail like habit type things that I think are really useful for me. Um, One is having a routine, pretty consistent routine. It's like I do the laundry on the same day, I cook on the same day, I go to the gym 3 days a week. I have a pretty, I walk the dogs at the same times, pretty much, pretty consistently. And that for me, I always used to say in Shambhala, and I think so. Some of these things, like the schedule in Shambhala, can be like really comforting for somebody who's been traumatized, and so it kind of brings you in, right? And it's like you used to say things like, "Well, I'm good in a container, but when there's too much space, I blah blah blah." And it's like, no, I just need a fucking routine. It's much much simpler than that, and we woo 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 the fuck out of simple stuff, and then we take all your money and you know go to Spain for a month in a 5-star hotel, you know, or things like that. So the other one that I want to mention is fucking exercise. Like two things that have been really really helpful for me are a therapist. My therapist is not a trauma therapist. He's a relational therapist. He knows about trauma, but like that's not his specialty, so he's not doing trauma treatment, and that has worked out really really well for me. But like I know finding a therapist who you can relate to is really really can be really challenging for some people. I would recommend if you do go to a therapist that you like tell them right up front that like, you know, do not fucking say, "Have you tried mindfulness?" to me. Um, because, and if you're in like certain regions, that can be, I've been told, pretty challenging to find somebody who's not going to pull that shit on you. Um, but if you can find somebody, like if you tell them up front, like, fucking Buddhists fuck with me. Do not do that shit. If they're at all professional, they will respect your wishes. But that's a problem with people who are involved with Shambhala is they're fucking unprofessional. They'll still be like, "Oh, wouldn't you like some basic goodness?" Motherfuckers. Like fuck those guys. Seriously. Um and then for me, I do strength training. I do barbell training. If you look at the other videos, you see how skinny I was. I weigh like 25 pounds or so more than I did then. At the height, it was probably 30 some. But I can also deadlift 330 now. So it's not like I just got fat from quitting smoking. I gained weight intentionally. Um, So exercise of most kinds of pretty much any kind is probably helpful, with one caveat, which is if you tend to dissociate, sometimes running can make that worse. And things that are kind of repetitive, like an elliptical or even a bicycle, like can sometimes actually make that worse. But that's sort of, everybody's different, and I'm not telling anybody not to run, because I'm just saying if you're trying to figure out what's right for you, you might want to think of that. But I do want to emphasize how awesome strength training is, rather than sort of steer anyone away from anything. But strength training is especially helpful, I think, to people like me, because it's really fucking hard. And so if you're kind of turned up to fight all the time, it's like that can be a little intense. And so when you put you know, a 300-pound barbell on your back, or even if you're lighter, even a 135-pound barbell or a 100-pound barbell on your back, doesn't matter. The weight doesn't matter. But when you do that, like you can't not be really in your body, and you have to be very precise to get that done. And it wears you the hell out in a really positive way. And your body releases all the chemicals and whatever. But it helps a tremendous amount. And then on top of that, like feeling strong, like the first time you go lift a big water jug or something, and it's like easy, when it used to be like it's a pretty nice feeling. And feeling strong, I think, helps if you're traumatized, like if you're fearful because you've been fucking hurt by others, like knowing that you're like a little harder to kill because you're strong is it helps. And personally, if, like, for example, if I had to choose right now, if I had to stop going to my therapist or stop going to my relatively expensive barbell gym, I would stop going to the therapist. Earlier, that might not be the case, but at this point, I actually think that strength training is more valuable to my well-being than therapy is. So you can do, you know, I like what I do because it's very efficient, and it works really well, and you get really strong really fast. But whatever, you know, if you start with going for walks, or if you do yoga or whatever, it's fine. Swimming, maybe you get into jujitsu or some shit like that, whatever. But moving your body is really, really, really super helpful. So those are some of the things that I've done to get better from Shambhala. And then I decided to make this YouTube channel so that I could continue and maybe try and turn it into something like a little positive. Oh yeah, shit. I almost forgot. Because I discussed all of this, a lot of this with my therapist last week, and he always mentions this, and if I didn't say it, I would have to freaking reshoot it. Because I talked about all those different stages, all those different parts of my personal process, and there's one that every time I talk about the healing process, my therapist is like, "There's another thing," and his term for that is post traumatic growth, and I think it's a real thing. I do, but that's the part where you take the trauma that you experienced, and you actually leverage everything that taught you about being human, about the world, about life, about what's important, and it actually becomes a positive. And you have to do a lot of healing to get into that. But he kind of, I was telling him I was going to do this video, and he kind of emphasized, like, you are somebody who's done that. You've actually taken your trauma and you've grown from it. And I guess it's a way of reconciling. It's a way that you can kind of reconcile the whole thing, the experience, because if you had it to do over, would you not have been hurt? Would you like to see what your life would have been like? But that's not the life that you got. And so you can sort of regret it and hate it, and you can stay in that place a few steps back. I could have stayed in that place a few steps back where you know that it's like that and there's just nothing you can do. Um, you know, and don't think that if you're in that place that I think like it's your fault, or that I think you're not doing enough. Don't take it that way at all. That's not I wouldn't want anyone to get that from this. I'm only trying to give some hope that I have greatly improved my own symptoms through hard work and dedication that I've described, and I have developed and grown as a person as a result of that. So it can be done. And I do not lessen or diminish how hard that is and how much harder for someone else that it might be than for me. Um, and if you're still in that whatever gets you through the night stage, I see you. Like, I'm thinking of you. Because I know what it's like. I lived there for 20 years and I go back there sometimes. More than 20 years, but 20-ish adult years. 30, I don't know. Whatever. A bunch of years. Um, if you can reach out to someone for help who you can trust, reach out to them. You can find help, maybe, again, maybe, I hope. But I know, again, let me talk about my experience. Um, the the most help that I got came from the place that I thought I was least likely to find it. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I feel like something's missing, but I don't know how to conclude. Maybe I'll just fall asleep like the dogs. Um, so anyway, thanks for watching, I guess. I really don't know how to finish this. I feel like I left so much unsaid. Like that's how I feel after this. Um, I hope that I hope that it didn't make anyone feel worse. Um, anyhow, fuck those guys. If you're still in Shambhala, like this is what you're perpetuating. Like, and however you're rationalizing it, it's probably because you haven't done step one yet. Um, or you're just so fucking arrogant that you don't care about real people. But I might love you very much, but stop what you're doing. And um, thank you everybody for watching and sharing this with me and allowing me to do this with you. And I know it sounds weird, but like and subscribe and comment. Oh yes, and so many of you know so much more than I do and have so much more experience. What's worked for you? Put it down in the comments. Tell each other. Because I bet I missed a whole bunch of really useful shit that hasn't necessarily been what I've needed to do or what I've discovered. There's other techniques and methods. There's EDMR, there's somatic experiencing, there's the one where you do this. I don't know what that's called, the cross something or other. There's a whole bunch of shit. And I did that one, the cross your whatever side to side thing. I did that a while too. But like there's all kinds of shit that you can do. So become an expert in you and learn to love yourself and learn to let me love you. And one day at a time, you know, one day at a time. Some days are better than others. But it is possible if you suffer, and you may have been misdiagnosed with all kinds of things. It is possible to experience a dramatic reduction in symptoms. And it's not going to work the same way for everybody. And just please don't give up. Just please, 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 please don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. See you next time.